Welcome to Faith Channel, nurturing, learning, and hearing.
Now we're going to shift to part two, which is our Washington Adventist University experience. This is part two. We just shifted, Brother Gilroy. We just
Mercy,
shifted.
come on. I'm ready. I'm ready for the shift. They're ready for the shift.
Okay, so here's the shift. Okay, I'm gonna lay out a basically a history of Curtis. And Curtis was a person that I feel that I suffered from low esteem issues in my life, like a lot of people do, but I'm willing to admit it. And so one of the things that I did when I was in junior high and high school is that I majored in a particular subject. And follow me when I say this. The subject that I majored in was getting a D, the grade of a D. I wanted to do just enough to get past, but no more than that. And so my teenage life and my high school life basically was based on me barely doing anything. And so when I became an adult and got a little mature and put God in my life, I surrendered to the fact that I was an underachiever. And but I knew it was something else. So I decided to go back to school. And when I went back to school, I selected a Christian school, the Washington Adventist University, which is in Tacoma Park, Maryland, in the DC area. And so the reason I selected that school is because of its Christian foundation, but also I selected it because it was tailored for adult learners. And at that point, I was an adult learner. But again, when I go back to the fact that I just majored in a D, I said, okay, God had opened up the door and said, okay, there's some changes going to happen in your life. And that was one of the changes. So I went to this university and I learned so much about myself. And I give them a lot of credit for it because the lessons that I learned at that university, and Brother Kilroy and I are going to talk more about it, but it grew me up in my spiritual journey because I was a baby, a child trying to get to adulthood, but had a lot of baggage from my childhood that was saying, okay, you're not a high achiever. You got low self-esteem, but yet and still, then I'm in a spiritual war saying, that even with that baggage, God said that, you are a great person. You are a person made in the image of my son, Jesus Christ, and you're good in spite of all that stuff. So, brother, I'm gonna let you talk for a while about our
Family.
W.
Wow.
We give it abbreviation. We said WAU experience.
Now, this is such a great conversation because when I think about Washington Adventist University, I think about the legacy that Washington Adventist University has of turning the pain we've experienced into wisdom and the obstacles we face and opportunities. And so, the school is a temple of learning. The hallways are the corridor of truth, and the classroom is a sanctuary of excellence. But to put this in palatable terms, when I showed up, when I came to WAU about now it's been about 23 years ago in 2002 of January, just to be very concrete, just a broken, shattered young man, and the professors, the students, the teachers um, helped me pick up the puzzles and the shattered pieces of my life and mold it into something that was palatable, that was spiritual, that was dynamic, and that had a hallmark of vision, purpose, calling, destiny, heritage, and legacy. WAU's ability to take young people who are at a crossroads in their life and have really been been traumatized and to the point of dysfunction. All right, traumatized to the point of dysfunction. But the way that WAU is a healing center, because what I said before, the school is a temple of learning, the hallways of the corridor of truth, the classrooms, the section of excellence. It's the atmosphere of possibility. It's miracle territory. Miracles take place in the classroom. In the classroom, we learn the art, science, philosophy, and business of flight. We learn to take it to the next level academically, socially, professionally, intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, and morally. So every school that we go to, Washington Adventist University is a flight school. So you know how they used to say, Houston, we have liftoff. You could say, Washington Adventist University, we have liftoff. Tacoma Academy, we have liftoff. Tacoma Academy Preparatory School, we have liftoff. So a school really is the airport, and that's how we, transcend barriers with grace.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And you brought up a good subject that I'm gonna roll down the road. On this broadcast of your faith journeys, we keep it real, as they say. And one of the keeping it real things is that, like Brother Kilroy said, that we come to the school with our own past dysfunctions and stuff. And I'm just going to put one of my dysfunctions out there. My dysfunction was that I had a professor that grew me, but it was in a way that I didn't realize I was being uh, in a growing mode. I had to learn the lesson of growth through experience. And this experience was that this professor basically was saying, you know, he was explaining something about the Christian foundation of the church, and and he kept on saying, y'all, you all don't understand what I'm saying. And he kept saying that. And I was like, how do you know what I understand? And you haven't asked me, do I understand? You just take for granted I don't understand. so so
Ever.
this professor did it so much that it really irritated me. And I sort of withdrew from the class mentally, spiritually, presently, all that. I didn't want to go to the class because I didn't feel like hearing that over and over again. And I ended up failing that class, which was a $1,400
Mm.
lesson for me on top. And then I'm asking God, I said, God, what else do I need to get from this? And what I got from that was that, when God gives you a mission or a path to go down, no man has the power to deter that path unless you allow him. And so I allowed that professor to deter the path that God has set up for me. And I ended up, again, having to pay for that class because I failed it, because I withdrew mentally from the class. But I ended up having to take that class over again because it was a requirement class. So I spent $1,400 twice. I spent $2,800 for a class that I could have just passed if I just stayed in it. But mentally, I withdrew in it. So that was a lesson that I learned at WAU, of the power of my mind going in the wrong direction. God is telling me to go right, and I make a decision to go left.
We'd like to express our gratitude to our sponsors and donors for supporting the Faith Journey podcast. Thank you for tuning in. May you be blessed and continue to smile. Until we meet again.